Battle of Blair Mountain was the key battle in the West Virginia Mine Wars and was the climax of the larger coal wars that took place during the turn of the 20th century and the end of World War I. During the war, many unions, such as the United Mine Workers of America, got their demands for better working conditions and better pay. This was due to their realization that the workers had clout over wartime production via the control of the resources. When the war ended, the demand for raw materials fell, and many coal companies cut back on their workforces and mine output. These actions created growing unrest among the now unemployed miners, many of whom were veterans of the war. The conflict arose following World War I when wartime demand for raw resources fell again, and as a result, there was a reduced production of coal due to the decreased demand. There was also the continuing problem of the evictions of miners who had any involvement in unions to bargain against the mistreatment and poor wages common to their occupation.
Many consider the spark of this conflict to be the actions of Sid Hatfield, a local sheriff, against the Baldwin-Felts Detective Agency. Hatfield disdained the Baldwin-Felts due to his belief that the agency overstepped their boundaries and acted like thugs against the miners. The result was that Hatfield became more sympathetic towards the miners and was willing to help them out against the Baldwin-Felts.
The Baldwin-Felts Detective Agency, founded by Detective William Gibney Baldwin and lawyer William Lafayette Felts, prospered by doing the bidding of the coal companies. Their agency became known and feared when they began hiring agents to take on the blacklisted Unionists residing or squatting in coal towns. On May 5, 1920, the Baldwin-Felts Detective Agency became known as a force to be reckoned with when they attacked striking miners in Matewan, West Virginia. The striking miners had been evicted from their homes in the company town, but were illegally squatting on this property. The Baldwin-Felts agents had come to forcefully evict these squatting strikers, but were caught off guard afterward, as these miners decided then to take strategic posts around the town of Matewan and attack the agents once they had finished their business at the coal camp. Although the ensuing shootout cost the lives of 7 of the agents and only 2 of the evicted miners, the mayor of Matewan, Cabell Testerman, was also killed by one of the Baldwin-Felts agents in the ensuing crossfire. She feared that violence would break out and engulf the region as the miners were beginning to arm up. Many miners ignored the warnings and gathered to march towards their destination. Additionally, some groups who were eager to join up with the other miners commandeered a freight train, dubbed the Blue Steel Special, to travel to the conflict. Miners along the Little Coal River disarmed and scattered several Logan County deputies prior to the outbreak of the conflict.
Skirmishes rang out throughout the West Virginia mountainsides as the nation was watching the conflict with interest on August 25, 1921. The federal government, fearing a wide-scale uprising, scrambled the U.S. Army and ordered a squadron of bombers to be deployed in the region to quell the conflict. The U.S. forces were led by General Billy Mitchell and arrived on September 2, 1921. General Mitchell ordered a surveillance flight to gather intelligence on the miners' positions. Their orders were to bomb the miners, however, poor fog conditions grounded the Martin bombers. Several members of Chafflin's militia did hijack one of the bombers, but crashed into the mountains and killed the crew of 3.
Logan County Sheriff Don Chaffin, fearing the eventual violence, quickly began to expand his forces as he deputized Baldwin-Felts agents and volunteers in order to contain the threat the miners posed. They were given the directive to, quote, preserve law and order, end quote, and firearms to carry out the orders. When the fighting did break out in the end of August, the conflict was localized to Mingo and Logan counties. Additionally, the sheriff was also financed by several mining companies from the area under the banner of the Logan County Coal Operators Association. Chaffin also had anti-union bias due to the aforementioned payoffs from the local companies. The obligation to him to act with brutality against the miners. This obligated him to act with brutality against the miners.
Upon the arrival of the federal forces, many miners began to question the whole conflict. The reasoning is that many of the miners were World War I veterans and wouldn't shoot at those who wore the same uniform. One miner was quoted, "We wouldn't revolt against the national government," showing that the miners were hesitant to act against the federal government. The conflict ended with negotiations. Nearly 600 miners were arrested with charges of treason, attempted murder, and insurrection. The Battle of Blair Mountain was the largest armed civilian uprising in the history of the United States and represented a greater backlash against big coal companies and the elite and impacted the region significantly by bringing reform to coal towns across Appalachia.